The ignored calls. The penthouse office gleamed with the cold perfection of success. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline as it transformed from afternoon gold to evening amber. Victor Hartwell sat behind his custom Italian desk, eyes locked on 3 glowing monitors displaying stock tickers, contract negotiations, and video conferences that would determine the fate of his latest acquisition. The phone buzzed for the 3rd time that hour. Victor glanced at the screen without picking it up. Emma. Again. His jaw tightened as he swiped the call away. Whatever his daughter wanted could wait. The Techron Industries deal would not. Victor, are you still with us? The voice crackled through his earpiece. Jensen Blackwood, CEO of the company Victor was about to purchase for $200 million, sounded impatient. Absolutely, Victor replied smoothly, refocusing on the screen where 4 stern faces stared back at him. As I was saying, the merger timeline can be accelerated if we streamline the regulatory approvals. His phone lit up again. Emma. The 4th call. Victor felt a flicker of annoyance. At 23, she should understand that he was building something important. The fortune that paid for her college education, her apartment in Brooklyn, her comfortable life, did not materialize from thin air. It required sacrifice, focus, and yes, sometimes ignoring distractions. He had learned this lesson the hard way. Born in a cramped apartment in Queens, Victor had clawed his way from poverty through sheer determination. His father had been a janitor who died from a heart attack at 52, never owning anything of value. Victor swore he would be different. He would build an empire. He would never struggle. And he had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. Hartwell Ventures had become one of the most powerful investment firms in the country. At 48, Victor controlled assets worth over $500 million. His name appeared in Forbes. People respected him. Feared him, even, but somewhere along the climb, other things had fallen away. Things he told himself he would address later, when there was time, when the next deal closed, when the market stabilized. There was always a reason to postpone. His wife Helena had given up asking him to dinner years ago. Their conversations had dwindled to logistics about bills and schedules. They still shared a home, technically, though Victor spent most nights at the office or traveling. The marriage had become a business arrangement neither had the energy to terminate, and Emma. His daughter. The little girl who once waited by the door for him to come home, who drew him crayon pictures of stick-figure families, who believed her daddy could do anything. She had stopped waiting. Stopped drawing. Stopped believing. Victor pushed the thoughts away. Sentiment was weakness in his world. The strong survived. The focused won. Everything else was noise. We need your signature on the preliminary documents by midnight, Jensen said, pulling Victor back to the present. Can you commit to that timeline? Consider it done, Victor replied. My legal team will have everything ready within the hour. The video call ended. Victor leaned back in his leather chair, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. This deal would cement his legacy. Techron Industries held patents worth billions. With proper management, Victor could triple his portfolio value within 2 years. Maybe then he would slow down. Maybe then he would have time for the things he had postponed. His phone buzzed again. Emma. The 5th call. Something in Victor's chest tightened. Emma was not the type to call repeatedly. She had learned years ago that her father did not answer. She had learned to handle things herself, to not expect him, to not need him. The fact that she kept calling meant something was different. He stared at the phone as it continued to ring. His finger hovered over the decline button. The Techron documents needed his attention. The lawyers were waiting. Time was money, and he was wasting both. But the ringing would not stop. It echoed in the empty office, a sound that somehow felt louder than it should. Victor closed his eyes and saw Emma as a child, spinning in circles in their old apartment, laughing, calling for him to watch her dance. When had he last heard her laugh? The call went to voicemail. Silence returned to the office. Victor exhaled and turned back to his computer screen. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Emma. The sixth call. This time, something broke. Maybe it was the persistence. Maybe it was the memory of that little girl spinning in circles. Maybe it was the smallest whisper of fear that had been growing in his gut all evening, the primal instinct that something was wrong. Victor picked up the phone. Emma, I am in the middle of something extremely important. Can this wait until? Dad. Her voice stopped him cold. It was not angry or demanding. It was small. Broken. Scared. Dad, please. I need to talk to you. Please do not hang up. Victor felt his pulse quicken. In all their years of distance, Emma had never sounded like this. She had inherited his pride, his stubborn independence. She did not beg. She did not plead. But now, her voice cracked with something that made every instinct in his body scream danger. What is wrong? He asked, his tone shifting instantly from irritation to alert concern. I have been trying to reach you all day, Emma said, her words tumbling out fast. I called this morning. I called this afternoon. I texted you 17 times. Dad, I really need you to listen to me right now. I am listening, Victor said, standing up from his chair. His heart hammered in his chest. Emma, tell me what is happening. There was a long pause. Victor could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven, like she was fighting to hold something back. When she finally spoke, her words shattered the world he had built around himself. I am at Mount Sinai Hospital, Emma whispered. I have been here for 3 days. Mom is here with me. We did not want to tell you until we knew for sure, but the doctors just gave us the results. Dad, I have stage 3 lymphoma. I have cancer. The phone slipped from Victor's hand. It clattered on the desk, Emma's voice still coming through the speaker, tiny and distant. But Victor could not hear her anymore. The office seemed to tilt. The glowing monitors blurred. The Manhattan skyline outside his window lost all its meaning. Cancer. His daughter had cancer. And he had been declining her calls because of a business deal. How long had she been sick? How long had she been scared? How long had she needed him while he was busy building his empire of nothing? Victor grabbed the phone with trembling hands. I am coming, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma, I am coming right now. Do not move. I will be there in 20 minutes. Dad. I am so sorry, Victor choked out. I am so sorry, baby. I am coming. He ended the call and stood frozen in his perfect office, surrounded by the symbols of his success. The monitors still glowed. The contract still waited. The Techron deal still hung in the balance. None of it mattered. None of it had ever mattered. Victor grabbed his coat and ran for the elevator, leaving everything behind. For the first time in 20 years, he was running toward something that actually mattered. But as the elevator descended toward the street, one terrible question consumed him. Was he already too late? The truth unveiled. The taxi ride to Mount Sinai Hospital felt like an eternity compressed into 15 minutes. Victor sat in the back seat, his hands gripping his knees so tightly his knuckles turned white. The driver tried making small talk about the weather, the traffic, the Yankees game. Victor heard none of it. His mind replayed every missed call, every ignored text, every moment he had chosen work over his family. Stage 3 lymphoma. The words echoed in his skull like a death sentence. He pulled out his phone and searched frantically, his fingers clumsy on the screen. Survival rates. Treatment options. Prognosis. Each article he found made his stomach drop further. Stage 3 was serious. Very serious. Why had nobody told him sooner? Why had Emma waited so long? But he knew why. He had trained his family not to need him. He had made himself unavailable so consistently, so thoroughly, that they had learned to face their crises alone. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The taxi screeched to a halt outside the hospital entrance. Victor threw a $100 bill at the driver without waiting for change and sprinted through the sliding glass doors. The sterile smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner assaulted his senses. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A security guard looked up in surprise as Victor ran past the reception desk. "Sir, you need to check in." "My daughter," Victor gasped, barely slowing down. "Emma Hartwell. Oncology floor." "Where?" The guard pointed toward the elevators. "7th floor, but you cannot just." Victor was already running. He jabbed the elevator button repeatedly, pacing like a caged animal. When the doors finally opened, he squeezed inside before they fully parted. The ride to the 7th floor took 30 seconds. It felt like 30 hours. The oncology ward was quieter than he expected. Muted colors, soft lighting, nurses moving with practiced efficiency. A sign pointed toward patient rooms. Victor followed the numbers, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. Room 714. Emma's name was written on a small whiteboard outside the door. Victor's hand trembled as he reached for the handle. What would he say? What could he possibly say that would make any of this right? He pushed the door open slowly. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp in the corner and the glow of medical monitors. And there, in the hospital bed, was his daughter. Emma looked smaller than he remembered. She had always been petite, but now she seemed fragile, almost translucent. An 4-line ran from her arm to a bag of clear fluid hanging beside the bed. Her dark hair, once thick and lustrous like her mother's, had been cut short. She wore a faded hospital gown and was staring at her hands in her lap. Beside the bed, in a chair that had clearly been slept in, sat Helena. Victor's wife looked up as he entered, and the expression on her face stopped him in his tracks. It was not anger, though he deserved her fury. It was not relief at his arrival. It was exhaustion. Complete, bone-deep exhaustion mixed with a sadness so profound it seemed to age her 10 years in the dim light. "Dad," Emma said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Victor crossed the room in 3 strides and fell to his knees beside her bed. Tears he had not cried in decades streamed down his face. "Emma. Oh God, Emma. I am here. I am so sorry. I am here now." Emma reached out with her free hand and touched his face. Her fingers were cool and trembling. "You came," she said, and the surprise in her voice broke something inside Victor that he did not know could break. "Of course I came," he choked out. "Emma, why did you not tell me sooner? When did this start?" Helena stood up from her chair, her movements stiff and slow. "She has been sick for 4 months, Victor," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. "She started feeling tired in August. Lost weight. Bruised easily. I took her to the doctor in September. We got the initial diagnosis 6 weeks ago. 4 months. 6 weeks." Victor felt like he was falling through the floor. 6 weeks? You have known for 6 weeks and nobody told me? We tried, Emma said quietly. Mom called you 12 times that first day. I called you 8. You were in Singapore for that conference. You texted back saying you would call when you landed, but you never did. The memory came flooding back. The Singapore Technology Summit. The deal with the Japanese investors. The series of meetings that ran late into the night. He had landed in New York the next morning and gone straight to another meeting. Helena's calls had gotten lost in the avalanche of work. He had meant to call back. He always meant to call back. I tried telling you at Thanksgiving, Helena continued, her voice still eerily calm. You stayed at the table for 17 minutes before taking a call and disappearing into your study for 3 hours. By the time you came out, Emma and I had already gone home. Victor remembered that too. The Thanksgiving he had hosted at his penthouse as a gesture of family togetherness. The urgent call from Jensen Blackwood about the Techron deal. Just 20 minutes, he had promised himself. Just 20 minutes to handle this crisis. Those 20 minutes had become 3 hours. When he finally emerged, the apartment had been empty except for the cleaning service boxing up leftovers. I tried at Christmas, Emma added, her voice getting smaller. You flew to London on Christmas Eve. For a meeting that could have happened over video conference. Mom and I spent Christmas alone. Again. Each word was a knife. Each revelation a wound. Victor had no defense. No excuse. No justification that could possibly matter. He had been given opportunity after opportunity to be present, to be a father, to be a husband, and he had chosen spreadsheets and contracts every single time. The doctors say the cancer is aggressive, Helena said, standing by the window with her arms wrapped around herself. Stage 3 means it has spread to lymph nodes on both sides of her diaphragm. She starts chemotherapy tomorrow morning. 6 months of treatment, maybe more. The survival rate is about 65% if the treatment works. 65%. That meant a 35% chance that his daughter would die. A 35% chance that he would lose her forever because he had been too busy to answer her phone calls. I will pay for everything, Victor said desperately, standing up. The best doctors. The best treatment. I will hire specialists from anywhere in the world. Money is no object. Whatever it takes, Victor. Helena's voice cut through his panic like ice. Money is not the problem. It has never been the problem. We have excellent doctors. We have a treatment plan. What Emma needed was her father. What she still needs is her father. Not your wallet. You. The words hung in the air. Victor looked at his wife, really looked at her, for the first time in years. When had the lines appeared around her eyes? When had the gray started threading through her hair? She was 45 years old but looked 55. How much of that was his fault? Mom has been with me every single day, Emma said, her voice stronger now. Every doctor's appointment. Every test. Every scan. She took a leave of absence from her job. She sleeps here in that chair every night. She holds my hair when the nausea gets bad from the medication. She researches treatment options until 3 in the morning. She has been my rock, Dad. She has been everything. Victor turned back to Helena, seeing the truth written on her exhausted face. While he had been building his empire, his wife had been fighting a war. While he had been chasing his next acquisition, she had been keeping their daughter alive. She had carried this impossible burden alone because he had made himself unavailable. Helena, he whispered. I did not know. I did not. You did not want to know, she interrupted, her composure finally cracking. You made a choice, Victor. Every single day, you made a choice. You chose board meetings over birthday parties. You chose conference calls over conversations. You chose success over us. And now here we are. Our daughter has cancer, and you just found out because she called you enough times that you could not ignore her anymore. The truth of it crushed him. She was right. Absolutely right. He had not been stolen from his family by circumstances beyond his control. He had walked away voluntarily, one choice at a time, one missed moment at a time, until he had become a stranger to the people who should have mattered most. I want to be here, Victor said, his voice breaking. Please. I know I have no right to ask. I know I have failed you both in every way that matters. But please let me be here now. Let me try to do better. Let me try to be what I should have been all along." Emma and Helena exchanged a long look. A whole conversation seemed to pass between them in that glance, years of shared experiences and private pain that Victor had not been part of. Finally, Emma nodded slightly. Helena sighed, a sound of profound weariness. "If you are going to be here, Victor, then be here. Actually here. Not on your phone. Not thinking about your next deal. Here, present, with your daughter who is scared and sick and needs her father." "The Techron deal," Victor started, then stopped himself. What was he doing? His daughter was fighting for her life and he was thinking about a business deal? The old habits ran deep. Too deep. He pulled out his phone, opened his email, and began typing. "Jensen, I need to withdraw from the Techron acquisition effective immediately. Family emergency. I will explain later. My apologies." He hit send before he could reconsider. Then he turned off the phone completely and put it in his coat pocket. "No more deals," he said firmly. "No more meetings. I am staying here with Emma until she does not need me anymore. However long that takes." Emma's eyes widened. "Dad, you do not have to." "Yes, I do," Victor said, pulling the chair closer to her bed and sitting down. He took her hand gently in his. "I have to. Not because of obligation or guilt, though God knows I have plenty of both. I have to because you are my daughter. Because I love you more than any business deal or bank account or prestigious acquisition. I just forgot that for a while. I forgot what mattered." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes. "I was so scared you would not come," she whispered. "I was so scared I would have to do this without you." "Never again," Victor promised, squeezing her hand. "You will never have to do anything without me again. I am here, Emma. I am finally here." Helena sank back into her chair, covering her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Victor reached out and took her hand too, connecting the three of them in a circle of shared pain and tentative hope. Outside the window, the city continued its endless motion. Deals were being made. Fortunes were being won and lost. Empires were rising and falling. None of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was in this room. "Tell me everything," Victor said softly, looking between his wife and daughter. "Tell me what I missed. Tell me what happens next. Tell me how I can help. I am listening now. Really listening." And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Victor Hartwell was exactly where he needed to be. Not in a boardroom or on a private jet or behind a computer screen. He was present. He was there. And as Emma began to talk, describing her symptoms and fears and hopes for the future, Victor held on tight and vowed that he would never let go again. The road ahead would be difficult. 6 months of chemotherapy. Uncertain outcomes. Fear and pain and countless challenges. But they would face it together. As a family. Finally, truly, as a family. And in that moment, Victor understood what he had been chasing his entire life. Success was not measured in dollars or deals. It was measured in moments like this. Holding your daughter's hand. Supporting your wife. Being present when it mattered most. He had spent 20 years building an empire. Now he would spend however long it took rebuilding what truly mattered. His family. His relationships. His soul. It would not be easy. The damage was deep and the trust was broken. But as Emma smiled at him weakly and Helena's grip on his hand tightened just slightly, Victor felt something he had not felt in years.